everybody.
Hi, friends. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah.
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
A podcast exploring religion, politics, and current events from two atheists just trying to survive life in the United States.
Oh my, I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show today, Dan, we're going to... second half of the show, we're going to be talking about something that is very concerning to me because it basically seems like we are just wired to believe nonsense as human beings.
Yeah.
At least a good portion of us are. And that alarms me.
I find it alarming too. Although our group, atheists, people who call themselves atheists, less likely to be afflicted by this, but we're going to get into it.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going into Bigfoot. We're going into psychics. We're going into like
UFOs.
You name it.
Yeah.
If you've got a weirdo belief, we're coming for you in the second half of the show. So tune in to be offended by us later.
Well, all right. First, before we get to all of that, there is some stuff we need to talk about, Dan.
Some pressing news of the day.
Things happened this week, and we need to talk.
Yes.
So, Dan, Colorado. It's
a state. It's next door to us.
It's Pride Month in Colorado, just like it is here.
Sure.
Just like it is everywhere, basically.
Right.
It's June, which means the gays are on display for all the world to see.
It's the gay display.
Hooray. We're here. We're proud.
I don't think that's how it goes.
And we've got flags.
Yeah.
And we like to fly them. Yeah. And it much to the ire or much
chagrin.
Much to the chagrin of Colorado's Republican Party.
Whoa.
That has sent out an email this last week to the general to all their followers, all the members of the cult. It said, burn all the pride flags this June. That's what they said on Twitter. In the email that I was just talking about, they said, the month of June has arrived, and once again, the godless groomers in our society want to attack what is decent, holy, and righteous so they can ultimately harm our children.
Have they mistaken? This is a question I have. Have they mistaken the phrase groomer to mean people who are well groomed? Is that the problem? Is that the misunderstanding here? Is that what?
And they're just trying to protect their unplucked eyebrows.
They're trying to protect their kids from like unreasonable beauty standards.
I mean, that is a concern in our modern world.
Listen, if that was what they were upset about, that would be so much more legitimate than any of the concerns that they've ever raised before. I would be like, you know what? Maybe they have a point on that.
Yeah. Anyway, the email included a link to a sermon by Mark Driscoll.
Oh, yes.
You know Mark Driscoll. He's an evangelical pastor.
He's the best one.
Known for all sorts of things, but also his anti-LGBTQ views and whatnot. But the email is signed by the Republican Party chair, Dave Williams, who's also a candidate for Congress.
Oh, my.
Colorado's 5th congressional district.
I hope that's not Lauren Boebert's new district. Because
no, I don't think so, because the person that he's running against is in this primary is not Lauren Boebert.
Okay.
But anyway, because the Colorado's 5th district includes Colorado Springs.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I'm thinking we need to declare Colorado Springs an unsafe for gays zone.
Oh yeah.
If you'll recall, that there was a nightclub that was shot up. I think
Can we declare
5
it
people were
unsafe?
killed.
Just-
24 were injured in a mass
Yeah.
shooting at an LGBTQ nightclub in 2022. We talked about it on the show, of course, and I'm sure you heard about it elsewhere. And so I think Colorado Springs, I already was never going to go. But I feel like we just need to be like, yeah, Colorado Springs not safe for gays anymore.
It's a shithole country is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And he says after the media inquired, about this whole email, like, excuse us, we need to know what you were thinking here.
Would you please clarify your hatred for us?
Yeah, exactly. He says that the Colorado Republican Party makes no apologies for saying God hates pride or pride flags, as it's an agenda that harms children and undermines parental authority. The only backlash we see is coming from radical Democrats, the fake news, and weak Republicans who bow down at the feet of leftist cancel culture. Some of those Republicans might be the Republican Party's own log cabin Republicans.
Yeah.
Who are standing by their stupid party. This is from Valdemar Archuleta, president of the Colorado chapter.
Did you just say Voldemort? I'm pretty
Valdemar Archuleta. Yeah, sure. I have been an avid critic of where the celebration of Pride has gone in recent years. This is a gay man and am a firm supporter of protecting children from environments and entertainments that are of an adult nature. However, this email went too far and was just hateful. Oh, it went too far. They finally went too far for a log cabin Republican.
Oh my God.
Which is amazing. I mean, honestly, before I had gotten to that part of the article, like I was like, well, how do the fucking log cabin Republicans feel about this? And then I saw it and I was like, you fucking pieces of shit.
The answer is they're already in self-loathing mode, so they're fine. They'll
Activate self-loathing.
God.
Yeah, it's a trip, man, because like they're calling for the burning of pride flags. Now, I don't know. I think the burning of anything is like as a political gesture is problematic. It just brings up images of other things being burned about groups that, because that's in large part, that's what the Nazis were upset about, were queers back in the day. A lot of those books were from a library, right? That, am I wrong about that? I think I might be wrong.
I don't know what you're on about. You're just blathering now at this point. These people are not good people. And if you don't mind, I'll take that as a pivot point to more not great people. Or maybe we'll see. We're going to dive into, we're from hating the gays, we're going to go to hating the women. Because, if there's one thing that religion is good at, it's disenfranchising half of their people. So let's start. This is a story in 3 parts. It's going to start with the Southern Baptists, who we reported last year. I told this. I took somebody else's story last year, or whatever it is we do. But last year, the Southern Baptist Convention voted to basically say, hey, we don't want women pastors. And what that ended up meaning was, and they disaffiliated with one of their largest mega churches, which is the Saddleback Church.
Right.
That's Rick Warren's big church. And they disaffiliated with them because like the crazy Marxist liberals that they were, they had women pastors. And now they're voting a second time. And it turns out that what that means is that if you vote one time and that tease it up, I guess. And then they have another convention the next year. And if it's voted on, and if it's approved again, then it's part of their constitution.
Okay.
So that vote's coming up. If it is turned down, it would be shocking because it turns out that has never happened. Like if they vote on it one year, it gets voted on, it gets affirmed the next year. So
okay.
We'll see how that turns out. Phase part 2 of this story is the Episcopal people in, well, it keeps mentioning Fort Worth, but it's actually a big group of people within the Anglican Church in North America, or ACNA.
Okay.
Who, now the Anglican Church, they have women pastors. That is a thing that they have. Women priests, that is. And they are fighting, and groups within it are fighting against it. There has been 300 ANCA clergy, guess which gender these ones are, who have all signed an open letter opposing the ordination of women to the priesthood. So even here in the United States, like, yeah, we knew about, like, in Africa, they don't want any of that stuff, but here in the United States, they had this letter called the Augustine Appeal that basically said that ordaining women is a slippery slope. Which is the actual wording that was used by a guy named Reverend Calvin Robinson, who is from the UK, and apparently went and spoke at a diocese that actually does allow the ordination of women, and called the ordination of women a slippery slope akin to a Trojan horse and to cancer.
What the what?
You want to hear the actual quote? Because it's good. He said, "This is how the liberal infestation of the church began. The doors were left open for the Marxist ideologies to gain a foothold. Gender theory, queer theory, critical race theory. It all began with feminism."
Wow.
He was literally removed from the remainder of the event that he was speaking at.
Just because he just couldn't calm down. He just kept frothing.
He was literally in a church that ordains women, and he was saying all this stuff. It's so unhinged. Marxism. The fact, like, when a priest brings up Marxism as a boogeyman, things are very confusing. But it's not just confusing in the Christian world. There's a third story that I want to fold into this recipe.
Okay.
Which is what's happening in Israel, where it feels like it might be going a little bit in the opposite direction, but it's not. Let's be real. It's not. We have talked about Israel's chief rabbinate before. This group, it's 2 rabbis who basically are governmental agents who decide a whole bunch of law within Israel.
Okay.
That, like, Jewish law becomes legal law in a lot of ways in Israel. Things like kosher standards, and marriage and divorce laws that can be really problematic for secular people living in Israel who don't want a religious wedding, but are forced to have it because the people that are running the show are this chief rabbinate, and then a group of people who elect them. But the people who elect the rabbinate are this group of 150 members. It's an assembly that like, they are the ones who elect the Israel's chief rabbinate. Many of them are let's see, 70 of those 150 seats are reserved for public representatives, including members of Israel's parliament, the Knesset. And then the other 80 seats are filled by rabbis. And those rabbis, oddly, like in a bizarre move of sort of self-serving, the rabbis are chosen by the rabbinate. So if you want to stay chief rabbi, just make sure you choose the right other rabbis to vote for you.
Yeah.
But there's been a big, the Supreme Court of Israel, we reported on this, the Supreme Court of Israel sort of paved the way for female rabbis to be part of that group that elects the chief rabbinate.
Okay.
But again, who's choosing them? It's the chief rabbinate themselves. And this is a largely like ultra-Orthodox body.
Right.
The ultra-Orthodox have a wildly outsized power in Israel because most of the country is not ultra-Orthodox, and yet the ultra-Orthodox run the show top to bottom.
Right.
So the good news is that the chief rabbi, the chief rabbinate has sort of bowed to pressure to bring in some women. So that's a good thing. The bad thing is that it's 10 women in a seat in the body of 150 members.
Keep them in the minority.
And those 10 women are women's hand chosen who will likely just vote as the chief rabbinate wants them to vote because it's a dumb, rigged system.
Right. Oh, wow.
So, even when women make small gains, do they though? That's the question.
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
Not so much.
It's a slippery slope though.
Always a slippery slope. Have you ever known a slope not to be slippery?
Well, you want them to be.
Yeah.
You hope so.
Yeah, they're more fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, well, Dan, here's one that this story strays slightly from our typical rules about what we pick to talk about on the show. But it was such an interesting story that I rationalized it.
Okay.
I admit I rationalized bringing this up on the show.
All right. Always great to start a story with a disclaimer like that.
This has to do with a development in Brazil where some Amazon tribes, I guess, have been getting hooked up to the internet via Starlink.
Oh, yeah.
And this is like, wow, right? The internet. It's like, it's so like important and so good for people to be connected, right?
Yeah.
And what is it? How is this going to like change this tribe's, view on the outside world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Well, it turns out that, at least according to this one article, that the tribe in question has been essentially torn apart by social media and porn addiction.
Oh,
quote unquote porn addiction. And it's the Marubo tribe. There's about 2,000 members of the tribe. And again, this is according to the article. They've been bitterly divided by the Starlink service, which arrived 9 months ago.
For those of you who don't know, Starlink is Elon Musk's satellite-based internet service. So
Yeah,
so it's available like kind of everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Really remote areas, you don't need any wires.
I mean, it's kind of a cool service, right?
It is kind of cool.
And this was one of the promises of Starlink, is that people in remote areas of the world
could get conspiracy theories as well as any of us.
They could be corrupted just as easily as we can.
Yeah.
But anyway, and so, so the article is written from this perspective of, oh my God, look how it's destroying their culture and their society, and they'll never be the same because the internet has arrived. And oh, boo hoo hoo hoo. We should keep these people as a museum, right? So that something is preserved. Like, I don't even know what you're trying to preserve at this point.
It's
right?
so funny because people fetishize primitivism.
Yeah.
In this bizarre way where it's like, oh no, we might lose the charming nature of these primitive peoples.
Right. And it's like, well, and
you don't say that about France. You don't go, oh no, if we give France the internet, what will happen to their culture?
What will happen to the cheese? And as long as nothing happens to the frogwa, Dan.
Right.
No, like, yeah, I look at this and I'm just like, well, what culture is something that I experience, that humans experience between the people of their community, right? We create our culture, right?
Yeah.
It's our culture is handed down to us. We receive the culture and we live in it and we create it.
And we change it.
And we change it. And don't people have the right to accept things into their community, right?
Yeah.
As individuals even, right? That, yeah, it might change. It might change. But people are getting the opportunity to see the world, right?
Yeah.
They're getting access to information. And the article kind of is like, the tone of the article, I'm like, I think they don't like the fact that one of these young people in the community is wanting to move to Sao Paulo and become a dentist. Right? And I'm like, she has the right to self-determine. Right? Like,
oh, wouldn't that be awful if she just chose a life that would make her happy?
Yeah. She saw something on the internet. I don't know how she was like, dentistry. Right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
That's not like, I don't see, I cannot put myself in her place. Right? But I don't imagine that I would have, upon being exposed to the greater world, gone, you know what I want to do for the rest of my life? Stick my hands in people's mouths.
You know, it is a world of possibilities. And one of those possibilities is dentistry. So suppose we can do that.
Yeah. It's just like, and so the traditional rule on the show is that we talk about religion, right? Yeah. And I don't know what these folks' religion is. I don't know what they've been exposed to. The pictures of the tribe members sort of setting up one of the Starlink antennas, and there's a couple of older tribe members talking in a picture. But the thing that I sort of noticed was the older people have eyeglasses. Right.
Yeah.
And this younger guy, he's got like sunglasses up on his forehead. And this guy over here, he has like a traditional sort of like necklace, I guess you would say, neckwear of some kind. Mm-hmm. And he's wearing an Adidas ball cap. Right. And there's electricity here, right? Like these people, like, they've already been exposed to the outside world. I don't know why we're fetishizing the whole thing of like, oh, we must protect them. Let them make their own choices, right?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that means that this is an appropriate story for our show is that, yeah, it might actually change how they view their folk, whatever their folk. I'm doing it. Their religion,
right?
Whatever their
cosmology,
is,
right? However they see the universe.
This will influence that.
Yeah,
and I think it's safe to say that the internet is a contributor. We don't know how much. We don't know like to what extent, but it is a contributor to our like society's letting go of our traditional religions. Yeah. And I think people are not okay with that.
Right. And I don't want to project too much onto these people because they're just as likely Seventh-day Adventist, right?
Right, yeah.
And so like I can't get behind the idea of like keeping a connection to the world away from people so that they can self-determine. Like I just can't.
Yeah, because just like with religion, if you're self-determining based on limited information,
Yeah.
you're going to come to dumb conclusions.
Yeah.
And that's the same with religion. Like all religions, if the more you know about how the actual world works, the less likely you are to, like, you know, be part of a dumb religion.
Yeah. And the thing is, these, you know, like any group of people that have been like, they have their community, they should work to preserve their community, right?
Yeah.
If that's important to them, they should work to preserve their community. And I know the outside forces are really, really rough, right? Yeah. And challenging and everything. But unless you're like that tribe on that island down in off the coast of India that kills everybody that shows up, like if you're letting people in, you're saying we're letting outside stuff in. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I don't know. Probably pissed a few people off there. I don't know.
Well, you know, the other thing is that they are getting access to the bad things too, like Twitter or whatever. So, you know.
Believe me. Yeah. Like if I wish that I had been protected from social media, right? And so maybe we should be trying to protect people from social media, but whatever.
Yeah. All right. We have talked about the fact that the Southern Baptist Convention, I'm going back to the SBC, the Southern Baptist Convention decided to take a stand, and they, you know, there has been some horrible abuse within Baptist ministry and whatever. We're talking about, you know, any number of clergy abuse, sexual abuse, this sort of thing. Unfortunately, so what the Southern Baptist Convention did was they impaneled a task force to get in there and sort of, you know, figure out some ways to root out abuse, including one of the big things that they were going to do is set up a database so that a Baptist pastor can't just jump ship at the place where he was caught doing something awful and go to, you know, a church in another state and just take up residence there without anybody really knowing about it.
Okay.
Which would be great. There are some legal questions there. You know, a person could potentially sue a task force or a creator of such a database.
Yeah,
if it's not done incredibly carefully or whatever.
Right.
And
kind
so
of,
like the
kind
first
of blackballing people there in a way,
which is okay. Like you should blackball people who have committed these kinds of abuses.
What about turning them into the authorities?
Yeah, well,
so that it's part of public record, and then like you could do a background check.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Problem solved. And now you don't have to take on the liability of, like, you know, potentially, you know.
Yeah, they don't all like to do background checks, Frank. It's a problem.
Violating people's civil rights or something, right? Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, the first year after they came back, they had not been able to make this happen.
Okay.
So now the task force has finally sort of closed their work. They have finished with what they're doing, and they started a new. What they did was they started a new LLC or a nonprofit organization that is charged with running Ministry Check, which is the database. And as of right now, there are 0 names on that list. They literally were able to accomplish nothing.
Or there have been no cases of abuse.
There have been 0 cases of abuse.
That's remarkable, Dan.
Yeah, what
They've
a
really
blessing!
Figured something out.
They made it work. No, they literally were not able to surmount like you and I in just this discussion have come up with better solutions than what they have. They achieved exactly nothing.
Oh no.
The task force itself reported that they were basically like the denomination was mostly like a big meh about the whole thing. The legal concerns were too high. And of course, people wanted, like the Southern Baptists, they feel like they if word gets out too much about this, they'll lose members, they'll lose donations. And they don't want to do that.
Right, because people want to be able to abuse with impunity.
With alacrity. Yeah. It's so, thank God for the SBC's Abuse Reform Implementation Task Force, which has implemented no abuse reforms.
Well done.
There you go.
Okay. Congratulations.
Good job, SBC.
Alrighty. Well, Dan, here we have over there in Oklahoma a little update to a story that I talked about last week, where Oklahoma had a bill had passed through their legislature that would require public school districts in the state to adopt a program that would allow students to go off campus for an hour of their school day for a religious or moral instruction course.
I want to know I want there to be moral instruction that is not religious. There's just somebody offers a moral class.
That would be great.
Morality class.
Great. Actually, a morality class that was actually a real morality class.
Yeah.
Could be taught in the schools without violating any sort of establishment.
Well, that's
problem.
true.
But nonetheless, in order to learn morals in Oklahoma, you have to go off the school district or off the school grounds. Anyway, so the governor signed it into law. It is real. And the Satanic Temple has rushed in. In fact,
why did I know that was going to be the next words out of your mouth?
I know. They actually they had warned the governor in advance. They were like, if you sign this, you know what we're doing, right? And I guess they got a little bit of media about it. Like don't thank you. Actually, because it's Satanic Temple, they're like, oh, thank you for letting us do this, right? But essentially they're like, listen, we're going to come in and we're going to establish our Helian Academy of Independent Learning, or HALE, in outside of one of these schools somewhere, and you're going to be, because this was the thing that was like really problematic about this program, is that the state is also requiring that the school districts give credit if the course sort of qualifies, meets some standards, some basic standards of they need to follow some the regular criteria that the school district has for classroom instruction time. There has to be a course syllabus which reflects the course requirements and any materials
I love it
used in the course. There has to be a method of assessment used in the course. And they have to sort of list out the qualifications of the course instructor, even though the course instructor does not need to be a licensed, educator of any kind.
Yeah.
Or have any training in being an actual.
Guess who's going to be better at this than any of the Christians?
The Satanic Temple.
The Satanic Temple.
Yeah.
They're gonna be able to take this all straight down the line. They are going to be more qualified than anybody else. They're going to have someone with a PhD teaching these high school students.
So this is what they said on Facebook before the governor actually signed it. We are patient. This is from Satanic Temple. We are patiently waiting on Governor Stitt's decision on whether Oklahoma will be the first state to offer students credits for classes taught by the Satanic Temple.
Yeah,
which is absolutely amazing. Thank you, Satanic Temple. Because
except
it's so
that
obvious.
it didn't work as a deterrent.
No,
the whole point of the Satanic Temple is that they're supposed to be a deterrent.
It's supposed to be a deterrent. And these lawmakers are like, well, okay, now you're going to have to show up and actually do your thing. They're think they're calling out some bluff.
Right.
It's not a bluff, right?
No.
Like Satanic Temple is going to show up, and then there's going to be real in the streets at the school board meetings outrage. True community outrage, and hopefully at that point the state realizes their mistake and at least fixes some of the problems with this program, right? Because
see.
Like these programs, like we said last week, the Mormon Church runs a program in Utah, right?
Yeah.
That's similar to this. All the state schools allow it, or the public schools allow it, and it goes back to a Supreme Court decision. Like this is the law of the land. These things are allowed. Oklahoma's is problematic, extra problematic, I guess I should say, because because the kids can get school credit for religion classes, that is just the line that cannot be crossed. So, anyway.
Yep. Well, that's problematic. But my last story I'm going to do is about a school issue that is, I think, much more problematic, and we should be much more worried. And we probably need much more help from the Satanic Temple for this thing to be okay.
Okay.
And that is, there was a recent article from the Washington Post where some investigative journalists went and looked into school voucher programs in the United States.
Okay.
There are a handful of states, a bunch of states that have very robust voucher programs. And the idea behind these voucher programs is that families can get vouchers for students to go to private schools rather than public schools.
Right. Meaning that sort of they've set a value on that child's public education, right? And and instead of the public schools keeping money for a kid that they're not going to be educating because the parents want to put that kid in a private school, they're transferring public money to a private school. Because that's what these programs are for, which is
the nicest
highly
way to
problematic to begin with, right?
Yeah, it is. It's deeply problematic because it does take money away from the public school system.
Yeah.
But, there are arguments to be made about disabled students getting, a more tailored education and, poor students who don't have access to private schools that maybe that would be a more appropriate place for them to learn, but they can't afford it or whatever.
These vouchers are not the amount that these vouchers, they're not giving them the $30,000 a year that they would need to put their kid in a really good private school.
But some of them offer up to $16,000 per student.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
It is a not small amount of money. And that's per student per year.
Oh my God.
Here's the thing though. It's not like this is just going to good schools or specialty schools. It's going to religious schools, and it's going there, so this public money is going to religious schools, and it's not a small percentage. In Wisconsin, which is one of the states that has a fully funded, like every kid qualifies for a voucher if they want it. There are about 55,000 vouchers given, that were given this school year. Do you want to guess the percent that went toward religious schools?
Oh my God. Probably like 90%.
96.
96%?
96%.
So it's all going to a lot of it's going to Catholic schools, probably, right?
But a lot of it's going to evangelical schools.
And then there's evangelical schools.
Like in Ohio, it's 91%. And unless you take out vouchers for students with disabilities, autism and other disabilities, at which point it jumps up to 98%.
Jesus.
Indiana, 98%.
Holy crap.
Florida has spent more than $3 billion on school vouchers. And at least 82% of that is going to religious schools.
Imagine how much better their public schools would be if they'd kept $3 billion in them.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is a many billions with a B dollars worth of problem. It's all like billions and billions of dollars are going to private religious schools. Are there standards for these schools? Not necessarily.
Right.
Literally, this is the dumbing down of America writ large.
Yeah.
This is a specific plan to indoctrinate rather than educate. And it is working like a charm. Utah is one of the states where basically every child is eligible.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
there you go.
And we some smarties here in Utah.
Yeah. Well, there's really smart people everywhere, but we're making sure that at least if they're smart, they're not educated. And that's the goal. So, and it hasn't been a huge strain. It hasn't at this point yet become a huge strain on the public school system, except that it is. Like, here's the problem is that it's quickly going to start becoming a crisis in the public school system. Our public school system is wildly underfunded already.
Right.
Wildly underfunded. And
Right.
these are the states where it's the worst.
Yeah.
And that is on purpose. They underfund, they make it intolerable for teachers who then have to either, find a different place to go teach or just, they just get the least qualified teachers possible. People who can't get decent jobs anywhere else, I guess. Because the teachers are, they don't pay the teachers well. They don't get, teachers are begging for copy paper and markers for their whiteboards and stuff. They don't have appropriate materials. It's a disaster. It is a crisis of education in our country. Don't move here. I guess that's part of the thing.
Wow. The anti-immigration stance of...
No, it's
Damn
save
teacher.
yourself. It is. This is not the place you think it is. Migrate somewhere else. I promise. Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh.
All right. Well, with that controversial statement having been made, if you, dear listener at home, would like to comment on anything we've been talking about, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. We'd love to hear from you. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There's more show coming up.
Well, Frank,
Dan.
we've had some folks write into us.
Okie doke.
And that's always a lovely thing.
Yes.
Another Dan, a Dan other than myself, has written in to say, when I heard you guys talk about Haiti, you'll recall we had a discussion about Haiti, I felt compelled to respond. I've been going to Haiti regularly since 1994, and I'm fluent in the language.
Huh.
Anyway, it's been clear to almost every NGO, non-governmental organization, that in Haiti, that any operations have been too dangerous for American staff for several years.
Oh.
Remember, we talked about a missionary couple that should never have been there that got
Right.
sadly killed.
Yeah.
The most recent unrest essentially started in 2018 when the Haitian government agreed to an IMF demand that they eliminate most fuel subsidies in exchange for a $96 million grant. Then, again in 2022, the prime minister eliminated the rest, causing fuel prices to double. I haven't been back to Haiti since 17 American missionaries were kidnapped in St. Mark in October of 2021. Everyone I work with in Haiti knows it is just too dangerous right now, even for those of us who've been going for decades and are fluent in the language. The first thing my friends and I said to each other when we heard about the murders of these two Americans and one of the Haitian staff was, what the hell were they thinking going to Haiti right now? I really hope I can go back someday. Haiti is really an enchanted place with so much beauty and history and culture. Yeah, sad. That's yeah. But don't go to Haiti. Like now is not your moment. Missionaries. Steven wrote in to say, hi, Frank and Dan. Great show. Keep up the good work. I am located in the UK, and the BBC has a regular documentary series called Storyville, which highlights many current affairs issues. Recently, they aired a 90-minute episode called Praying for Armageddon about the influence of evangelical Christians seeking the second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
I found the entire episode extremely alarming, and particularly the drive to an apocalyptic endgame proposed by Robert Jeffress, Rolf Drollinger, Mad Lauren Boebert, and others in the immediate theological advisory and prayer group surrounding Trump. I would be interested in your perspective, given your geographic and ideological grasp on what's really happening in the US of A.
Ugh.
Look, it's not good here.
Stay away. Stay away.
Well, don't stay away. You can have a good time here. But yes, people are literally hoping for the end of the world. They assume it's coming. They're certain that it's right around the corner. It's why they're gleeful. They're fucking giddy about what's happening in Israel.
Yeah.
Because they think that it means that the second coming of Jesus is going to happen any minute now.
It's so close, Dan.
They don't give a fuck about Israeli Jews. They don't give a fuck about Zionists. They hate that shit.
Yeah.
They hate Jews. But they like Israel, and they want Israel.
They want it. They covet it.
They think it's
this
theirs.
is how they're going to get it. Yeah.
Yeah. They think, once the battle is won and, all of the Palestinians have been genocided or whatever, then Jesus will appear on the Mount of Olives and suddenly everybody's, we win.
Yeah. I don't know, Dan. Are they right? Things sure are lining up.
It feels... If Trump wins again, they might be right.
They might be right.
If Trump wins again, it might literally be the end of the world.
To figure some things out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Might need to reconsider a thing or two at that point.
It won't be because of Jesus, but
sure.
It might be.
They'll have succeeded in ending the world.
Yeah.
It's just the whole Jesus thing ain't gonna. They're gonna be really disappointed, and so will the rest of us, because it was kind of a nice world. It wasn't great, but we had
an okay run.
It was okay.
I don't think we did great. I think
we're okay. Dan, we're okay.
If the people left, if there was no more people, I think the earth might be better off.
In what sense? It's a big rock with some water on it and an atmosphere, right? It is what it is, right?
Yeah. At this point, I'd trade us for polar bears. I think they're a better species in general.
Well, nonetheless, they might get what they've always wanted, but
yeah. All right. Alexandra also wrote into us, and this is something we should address. It says, "Hey guys, I still love the show, but where has the segment gone where you play an audio clip? That's my favorite part. To hear some idiot spouting hilarious nonsense and then for you to roast them. It's been missing for a few weeks, and it makes me sad."
We aren't idiots enough saying nonsense.
Our job is the roasting part of it. Why don't you say something and I'll roast you for it? No, here's the thing. We are unfortunately slaves to the algorithms of the world, like everybody.
Yeah. Yep.
And so we made a very difficult decision for ourselves, which was because one of the fastest growing venues for podcasts is unfortunately YouTube.
Right.
And YouTube's algorithm is extremely watchful of anyone using what it determines to be someone else's content. Doesn't matter if it's fair use. Doesn't matter if it's legally okay.
Right.
It's a battle that we were having to fight every single episode.
Yeah. Also, a lot of those clips were getting flagged as well for disseminating medical misinformation or disinformation.
Right. Yeah,
And
because we were playing people saying horrible things.
Yeah.
And even though we were saying that's dumb, that doesn't work, this is wrong, and we were like not disseminating misinformation and horrible things or hate speech.
Right.
We were playing people who were, and algorithms are notoriously bad at figuring out what's like
Context?
sarcastic and like what. Yeah. So we're in that battle. If any of you out there have better solutions to our issues, we would love to hear them.
Yeah.
You know, we considered even reading the quotes, transcripts ourselves.
That's not good enough, though.
It's not good.
I want to hear it. If you're going to talk about it, you want to hear these ding-dongs.
Yeah.
That's what was fun. Otherwise, it's just another little news story, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
so
we
it's
did plenty
tricky.
of that. Yeah.
So that's why we made that change. You've noticed probably that we've made a couple changes. We're just trying to get the stuff out there to the people. So I'm sorry if something that you love is gone or something that you don't love is now here. If you have suggestions, we're open to them, but for now, alas, this is kind of how it's going to be. All right. We have some folks to thank, and I'm going to start us off with Casey, who sent an email that said, I had to give you guys more money because I'm a liberal lady from OKC, that's Oklahoma City, who now lives in an upper middle class suburb of Fort Worth. Yikes. All right. Well, I'm glad that you paid your tithing or your penance for living in terrible places.
Oh.
I don't know. You and I had a fun time in Fort Worth.
We had a great time in Fort Worth. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much, Casey. Casey is now priest. We're gonna say that Casey is a priest in our
nice
in our magical priesthood.
That is cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we also have a couple new patrons, Dan, over on Patreon. These are people who went to our website, thankgodimatheist.com/donate. And they chose one of the many options that are available.
It's option loaded.
And so we have 2 new teachers this
Excellent.
week. That's a very, very, very important office in the Aaronic priesthood in the Mormon Church. So thank you to Mick and to Sin Eater.
Ooh, a sin eater. I like it. It's nice.
Indeed. And as always, Dan, we have our top donor to thank, our Lord and Savior, Davis.
More show coming up.
Dan.
Look behind you, Frank.
Oh no, what is it?
It's a demon. It's a Reiki. I don't know what it is.
Sasquatch.
There's crystals.
Oh, so many.
Something.
Oh, I love the crystals are so pretty, Dan. Don't you love a good crystal?
I actually genuinely do.
I think they're pretty.
And it really hurts me that they've been co-opted by the ding dong woo people.
I know. It's
because that is a genuinely pretty rock.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone thinking that as I appreciate that rock, that I have assigned it any kind of dumb meaning.
Right. Because like if you, Dan, let's say you decorated with crystals. It was kind of a theme that you were going for, and you had all these like crystals everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, people would assume some things, Dan, about
you.
They
would indeed.
And this sort of came to us thanks to a little study that a professor at Chapman, is it Chapman University, Chapman College? I can't remember which one it is.
Chapman.
Anyway, Chapman.
It's just
at
Chapman.
their Institute for Religion, Economics, and Society.
It's a university.
And anyway, this study sort of was looking at sort of how there's been sort of a rise in paranormal belief in America. And this would be
not paranormal activity, you ding dongs. It's
just the belief in those things.
Just belief in them.
Right. I mean, these are people who believe in ghosts, hauntings, apparitions, new agey things, psychics, mediums, astrology, ghost contact. Also people who believe in Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, anything like that, UFOs, anything that's sort of unexplained phenomenon.
Also
prophetic
fake.
dreams, healing sounds is on the list. I love a good healing sound.
Oh yeah.
Tarot cards, of course. Obviously, some of these things are things that we've talked about before on the show.
Sure.
But what is interesting about this particular sort of study is some of the conclusions that they are making about the how it might be sort of the shifting systems of faith that's sort of moving around in America, right? People leaving churches, so forth. The rise of the nuns is how we would talk about it. That this is actually fueling a rise in paranormal belief. This has opened up a vacuum where people who just fucking need to believe something, right?
Yeah.
Are filling it with this crap. Here's some numbers before we get into just the conversation that we want to have about this. Here's some of the survey's findings. 25% of Americans have read or researched the world of ghosts, hauntings, and apparitions. Men are more likely to connect with the paranormal via cryptozoology or animals of folklore.
Of course they are.
This is the Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah, that's Bigfoot.
Monster.
Yeah.
Women are more likely to connect with the paranormal via New Age connections.
That's
psychics,
the crystals.
mediums, crystals, astrology, tarot cards. 67.9% of women, and 63.3% of male respondents report a belief in Atlantis.
In fairness,
Let that sink in.
I think they probably don't know what it is. And they're just like, isn't that a city somewhere? I heard about it.
Of course, Atlanta. I've been to the airport. I fly Delta all the time, and I flew through Atlantis. I'm sure of this. Anyway, and then let's see, 59.1% of women respondents and 52.1% of male respondents report a belief in haunted places.
Right.
So this is mainstream. This is majority of Americans are believing in stuff that is just as stupid and just as unbelievable as the religious beliefs that they've just recently left behind.
Here's the
they're layering on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, with these numbers, these people believe in Jesus and
and Chupacabra. What if Jesus is Chupacabra? What if they are the same?
I don't know.
Here's the thing. I think a lot, and this article touches on this, but a lot of people experience a thing in their life, an event. They have an experience that feels inexplicable to them. Many people, I've had experiences that feel like they break some, physics laws or something. Like something's not right. And I get that. And a lot of people have that experience, or they see apparitions. They see, Oh,
I've seen stuff out of the corner of my eye, right?
Yeah.
I've had weird shadows catch the corner of my eye, and it for a split second in my brain interprets it as like a human shape. Right. And it's startling.
You're jumping to the conclusion that it wasn't actually a human shape, Frank.
Well,
And
because
what
I
if you
also look back and go, oh yeah, I see how that shadow hitting that wall in a way that I've never noticed before. Right.
Mhm.
That, okay, I can kind of see how my brain was in sort of its pattern recognition mode, which it always is. And it's, and it startled me. Like that part of my brain startled my more conscious part of my brain, and was just like, oh shit, what is that? And then it's like, oh, it's nothing. And so, but when I've had those little, those little moments, I have the thought of, oh, well, that's how people start believing in ghosts.
Yeah.
Or visitations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how it starts, because the brain just jumped to a conclusion that wasn't right. But, but because they're already ready to believe in crap, right?
Yeah.
They just accept it, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's Aunt Mary."
Because we are primed to believe in the supernatural.
Yeah,
literally, we are evolutionarily programmed for it. And
you think so?
Well, it's the agency detection thing, right?
Okay.
Like this is the argument is that when we were primates that were of smaller brain, it was an advantage if you looked at the tall grass and it started to move, you were at an evolutionary advantage to just decide there's an agent that's moving the grass other than the wind. There's something in there that could be dangerous to me.
Sure. Okay.
So I'm going to take evasive action of some sort. And those people lived longer. Those apes lived longer, or lived better than the ones who weren't programmed to decide, even whether or not there's an actual agent in there. Sometimes there is, and it was a snake, and it would kill you.
Right.
So, the ones who avoided that thing did better. But unfortunately, that meant that what got programmed in was, if you see something that you don't have an understanding for, assume agency. Assume that there is an agent that is causing that. And we have been battling that dumb brain thing ever since.
Right.
And the other thing is that, like you mentioned, we have pattern recognition software that is programmed specifically to put anyone who's looked at a cloud and been like, that's a person's face,
right?
Or a rock and been like, that's a person's face. We know that that's not a person's face, but our brains are programmed to put, people faces onto things that could remotely look like a people face.
Yeah. Remarkably so. Right.
So you combine all of those things, and then you do things like, pump natural gas into homes. And then sometimes when that happens, there's a leak and people start to hallucinate like people sitting on their bed, or, there's any number of reasons why
that happened before natural gas, right? Like people,
there's also things like people have sleep paralysis. And one of the common things that happens with sleep paralysis is that you imagine an entity sitting on your chest or whatever.
I really wish you hadn't mentioned sleep paralysis, because now I'm going to have a night of sleep paralysis.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hate.
I've experienced it a couple times in my life, and it is horrifying.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely, and I haven't experienced sort of the hallucination part of it. It's just the I can't move part of it.
You wake up and you're unable to move. Yeah. I've never had that experience, but it's another thing where people literally they hallucinate an entity, usually in human form.
And having experienced it, I totally get it. Right.
And it feels real to them.
Yeah.
And if you get enough of these stories brewing around,
where
people actually saw something, even if it was hallucinated,
right?
People who are not crazy, you're gonna start to get these things going, and and
not for nothing, you add in whatever this anti-scientific thing is that's going on in our society, right? Where
Mm.
such a large percentage of people are distrusting of science and medical authorities and so forth and so on. And then you start to see like, the new agey stuff, right? Where people,
Well,
if you're
it's
believing in
new
psychics
agey
and
on one
mediums-
end,
yeah, that's true. It's new
and then it's
on
and then
our
it's
side
like-
of things.
Yeah,
We all
On the
know
other-
somebody who's new agey, right? If you're on the
Yeah.
left. Oh.
So like, yeah,
And then on the right,
unfortunately,
you were going to say?
well, you've got new agey on the left where it's like, oh, I would only heal using crystals and whatever harmonics or something dumb.
Yeah.
And then on the right, it's like, I don't trust doctors either.
Yeah.
So I'll only trust Jesus or whatever
Yeah.
it is. And they end up being the same thing.
It's yeah.
The hippy dippy people end up being exactly the same as the lunatic right wingers
Yeah.
who won't, Dr. Fauci's trying to kill everybody or whatever it is. It's just, I think we are programmed, like you said, we are programmed to believe things. We are programmed to belief, and that's bad. Like believing without a preponderance of evidence,
Yeah.
just don't establish a belief. If you don't have like serious evidence that cannot be explained through like, Barnum statements and cold and hot reading and that sort of thing. Don't establish a belief there, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
We would like to please ask you don't to believe.
Yeah. But I mean, so one of the things I want to pose this question to you, Dan. I was thinking about this. It's like, Jesus, like, do you want people tethered to something that's more hierarchical and a little more tried and true, right? That has some moorings, right?
What are you talking about?
Religion, right?
Okay.
Or do you want people off wandering through the wilderness, just gravitating to whatever crazy like idea they can? I mean, I ran into a friend the other day who he quote almost had a stroke, right? And I'm like, how do you almost have a stroke, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not something you
And how
almost
do you
had.
know
How would
that
you
that's-
know that?
Yeah,
Well, this is
yeah.
how he knew it. His nose started bleeding and wouldn't stop. And so he goes into the doctor to the emergency room because this goes on for hours, and he's an older guy, right? 50s. His blood pressure was 250 or two in the middle of the twos over like 180, right? If those numbers don't mean anything to you, this is medical emergency, right?
Yeah.
It's well over medical emergency level. And the doctor goes, well, it's good that a blood vessel burst in your nose and not your brain.
And not your brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
was
how
like,
he almost had a stroke.
That means I almost had a stroke. Sure.
And so he gets this in his head, and his initial reaction, he lets them administer medicine that's going to lower his blood pressure. He takes the prescription. He gets an emergency appointment with a cardiologist. By the time he's into the cardiologist, he's like, listen, I'm also going to go see a what do you call it? A
naturopath.
naturopath. And so I'm going to hold off on taking these because I'd rather, if there's some herbs that could like fix this, right?
Much
and he's
better.
telling me this, and I'm just like, oh my God. Well, hey, it was really good to see you. Because this might be the last time, dude.
Oh my God.
Like-
It's like if you go see a naturopath, by the way, naturopathy is not supported by any kind of science.
Right.
Some of them use some like actual they all use some actual nutritional science, but they just use it to prop up their bullshit.
Right.
But that's okay. Like if you're doing all the things that your real doctor tells you to do, and you're using a naturopath to just give you advice on nutrition to support that or whatever, you're probably not going to hurt yourself.
Sure.
You're probably going to be all right.
All right.
But that's not your doctor.
Right.
That is not your doctor.
Yeah. If you're doing it in lieu of your doctor,
that is a glorified nutritionist,
or
and you're paying too much.
If you tell them that some sort of beetroot, which I believe is what he said, the naturopath or whatever. God damn it, I can't say that word. That they recommended that he take for his incredibly high blood pressure, right?
Yeah, beets, that'll solve everything.
And this naturopath was like, who told you to go on this blood pressure medicine?
Ugh. What idiot
and he's
was
just
telling you that?
Yeah, and the guy's like, oh, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. It's just big pharma, right? That whole conspiracy theory. That modern medicine is a grand conspiracy theory.
I mean, modern medicine isn't like the be all and the end all. It's still like, we're going to look back on it in 30 years and be like, oh my God, primitive. And,
but it's the best we've got right now.
It's as good as it gets.
And that's what's important, is that you're getting the best that scientists and medical professionals have come up with to bring your blood pressure down to something reasonable. Anyway, this is a guy, I really like this guy. I always have. We see the world wildly differently, right? But you started that conversation with, would it be better if they were in religion? And suddenly I'm like, there are some people that it's probably a good idea to be like, you know what? Go back to religion. No, that's what I'm talking about, right?
You're making really bad choices. It's time for you to go back to religion.
That's why I'm like, yeah. If you're just roaming through the wilderness with nothing
tethering you to reality
in any way, because I grew up with religious people all around me, right? And I don't know of anybody that was like, I don't know, doctor, right? I don't know about that blood pressure medicine. I need beetroot instead. Like, that just wasn't there, right? No. Anyway.
All right. Well, I'm guessing we've pissed somebody off.
I'm not actually making that argument, guys. Just calm down.
Well, calm down about everything. But also, if what we've said has pissed you off and your particular woo is real and we're dumb about it, feel free to write into us. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or Colin leaves a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
To support the show, go to thankgodimatheist.com/donate.
Our show is edited by Roger Gowdy, and music is by the Red Rock Hot Club and Gordon Johnston.
Thanks to all y'all for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Thank God I'm Atheist is a production of TGIA Media, LLC, copyright 2024, all rights reserved.